Hey there, it's Linda from Lanyos Handmade, and today we're going to sew up a Cork and Copper Designs pattern. Actually, it's 3 patterns. It's the Moonstone Messenger Bag, and I also used 2 of her other patterns that she has on sale right now. One is the Atelier Fiber Arts inspired appliques and strap-ins, and it's got all sorts of, I think it's about 100 and something pieces to the pattern. So it's got different themes. I picked the maple leaf one because she's got the hardware to match. I can show you inside. She's got the hardware to match all these pattern pieces. Let me see. So I bought the hardware too, right? And can match the appliques to them and the strap ends. And she's got ghosts and she's got cauldrons and she's got tombstones and all sorts of things like that. So take a look at the pattern and see, all the different themes. There's some pretty cool ones there. And the other thing I used was the zipper overlays. This is part 3 for her zipper overlays. She's got 2 other ones too with different shapes and sizes. So the zipper overlays can match the hardware too. So that's pretty cool. The bag itself has the outer flap here with the pocket in it. Mine might look like it's different than yours when you make yours because I made a bit of a boo-boo measuring. So it's the same procedure, it's just mine's a bit, I think it was lower than hers. Inside flap, top zipper, we've got a zipper in the back. That is a huge pouch. Could probably fit a book or an e-reader in there. There's a base for it that I didn't have to use because I used some stiff materials. There's a slip pocket inside that you can use for an iPad or something like that. Got a key lanyard. We have a place for our water bottle to be held secure here. What else? Oh, there's another pocket on the front. That's a pretty big one too. And there's a slip pocket on the back that you can put an iPad or e-reader or something in there. She has instructions for different straps. I had webbing, so I did webbing. But there's instructions on how to do the other kinds with the vinyl or the raw edge material too. So all in all, it's a really loaded pattern, and you can make a lot of variations of it just by using the themes that she has in her strap ends and zipper facings, or putting on extra pockets, taking off extra pockets, things like that. Some people even left the flap off and just left it as being the, did I get this all tangled up in here? Yes, I did. Look at that. My long hanging thing got stuck in my strap. 1 minute, please. There you go. So some people left the flap off and just made it with the zipper top, right? Felt it was easier for them to use. So, there's all sorts of options you can use. Quite a worthwhile pattern. I will put all the links below for 3 patterns. The Moonstone, the Atelier inspired pieces, and the zipper overlays, and my vinyl and hardware and everything. I'll also put the link below for the zipper jig I use and the Vario press that I use to put holes and rivets and things in. The other thing I should probably mention is that when I was making this, and you have to watch out for this too, if you're making these zipper overlays with a cutout on them, you have to put some backing behind them so that the cutout has something to look at. If you don't use backing, that's fine. I didn't use backing. But what you do then is you cut out only the zipper box. And I'll show you that if you go farther than the zipper box, you're going to mess up your little outline here. But I show you that when I'm making the bag. The other thing I wanted to show in the video is I turned my bag differently than she did because I had these appliques on the back that I was worried they would get wrinkled or scratched off. So I followed her instructions exactly, but you will find that there's the way to do it in the pattern and the way that I did it. And the reason why I did it that way was just because I didn't want to rub off my appliques. But it's the same technique. It's just, you know, kind of starting from a different angle. I have put chapter marks in so that you can find your specific spot. Like if you're looking for the flap only because you're stuck on that, you don't have to watch the whole video. You can just go to flap. So check out the chapter marks below too. So I just thought I'd give you a peek at this. I cut these out with my Cricut and most of them went okay, but this one chipped off a little bit. So I colored it in with this. We'll see if it's any good. I've got extras, so I only need 2. So I can always throw the extra ones out because this is the only one that's a bit funny. But I was just wondering if I can do the edges of this with this too, because I don't have red paint. I just wonder if that makes any difference on it. Yeah, it does. It gets rid of that white. So I'm going to go around these things on the outside and the inside only and try and color them up a bit so they don't end up too obvious. Okay, so I've done that. This was just a fabric marker. So hopefully it'll be good enough. So I've got a few of these done up. I might need 2 or 3 of them. And I'm going to put one on my top flap first. But I just wanted to show you. I've cut out appliques. I've cut out strap ends, although it didn't cut all the way through, so I'll have to cut some more. I've got all my pieces cut out. And make sure you use the labels that she gives you, because there are a lot of pattern pieces here. Maybe you won't use them all. Maybe you're making a different kind of bag with less pockets and flap straps and things like that, that you won't use them all. But I've got to go find my top flap now out of this, and I've got my labels all separated up into inside and outside and lining pieces and straps, so it should be easy to find. So here's my flap. And I've got a question for you. When you open a flap up on a bag, do you want the print right side up? Or if I put it this way, and I open the flap up, it would be upside down. So I think I'm going to go this way because I would prefer to be looking at it right side up, okay? So this is my flap. Even though I'm working on it this way, upside down. I'll put this aside for a minute, and on it I'm going to put this. I don't know where yet because I have to look at the measurements. But the part I do know is I'm going to sew around the outside edge and then cut the inside open a little bit so this hole is empty. I think I want to put some double-sided tape on here and put some of my SF 101 on here just to stop this from stretching as I sew, because I'm not sure if it's going to be stretching. So I'm going to put a little bit of interfacing on here and then measure and sew the outside edge of this on here. Okay, I've sewed it on just on the outside edge. You can see it's really big, and I need to cut out a little bit in the middle, but I can't cut the red facing I just did. Now I did this 2 different ways just to show you. You'll notice on this one I hardly cut any off. I just cut the square out. Let's see, I better snip in here a bit. So I just followed the zipper box. And then on this side I was very aggressive and I took more off than I should. So now, when we turn it over, we might end up having our bag have gaps. The backing is gone. This one, there is backing, right? These 3, there is no backing. Now it's easy for me to fix now before I sew it, because I'm going to stick a little strip of black in there underneath so that it hides the see-through part here, the hole. But it's easier just to make sure when you're cutting out a zipper facing that has any holes in it, just cut out the box only. Don't take any extra. It makes an extra layer for you to sew when you're sewing your zipper on, but at least it will give you a nice black background. So I'm going to slip some black in there, but first I wanted to show you my beautiful red zipper and my zipper pull. We're going to put that together. And that was so even, it's beautiful. There. So this goes on here. And again, I've got directional fabric, so who knows what's going to happen. Let's think about it then. Because if you're using directional fabric, you don't want to get it confused. So with this one, I'm sewing it this on this side. And then with the other one, I'm sewing it on this side. And I'm not paying attention to my ups and downs or anything here. I just want to show you what we're going to end up with. We'll see which one comes out right and which one comes out wrong. Maybe both of them will be wrong. So this is how this gets sewed together. It has the wrong sides with the zipper facing up and the right sides with the zipper facing down. Now if I close this and I look inside later, my balloon is facing the right way and my balloon is facing the right way. So that means when you're sticking your first layer on, your up is where the zipper is. And when you're sticking the second zipper on, your up is the zipper too. So these two things are crashing into each other, okay? So pay attention, test it out with clips to see if you're going your directional fabric the right way. So I'm just going to sew this on, and then like I showed you, I'll flip it up and I'll sew the other side on. And then after, when it's sewed, we can fold it back and top stitch along there so that it sits really nice and flat. Okay, so this is ready. You'll see this is the right side with the inside, and this is the wrong side with the outside. And when I put these two together, you're going to end up with your balloons flying up. So I've got the design facing the right way too. Now we flip it over and we put this on. Okay, now you'll notice I fixed this. I have double-sided tape and I put it on between this and my little patch that I put in. Of course, on this side I don't need it because I didn't cut more than just the box out. So I'm going to line these up as I'm supposed to, and now I sew the inside along this line. And make sure that you're not going too far one way or the other, right? It's supposed to be nicely centered between these two. And actually it looks like it's almost as wide. My zipper is way too long. But if my zipper was the right length, it would be probably as wide as this here. So I'm going to use double-sided tape to hold this down right here so that I can sew it on. And then after it's sewed on, I'll come back and I'll show you what the next step is. There we go. I sewed around the inside. The whole time I was doing it, I was thinking, why don't you just take this clangy thing off? Because this is just a, right? It's a clip-on. But it's just so cute, I couldn't take it off. So anyway, let's get this zipper closed up again. Now I can't get it back on. Oh, for pity's sakes. There. Okay, let's get this closed up. pull this down as far as it goes. Why is this so crooked? Cut it off straight. That's my bad snipping. And sew around. But when we're sewing around, only do the sides and the bottom. And it's probably easier after I clip it to sew it from this side down so we can see what we're doing. I'm just going to get that straightened out and then hold it and sew around the sides and the bottom. Okay, you see I've sewed this shut now, so it's a useful pocket. And I also zigzagged it too, just because I had to. It bothered me. So now we have a real pocket in here. The next thing we have to do is put on our straps. Now my vinyl is a little bit flimsy, so I'm going to do 2 layers here. So I'm going to grab a couple of these and make sure, I've got some short ones mixed in here too. I'm going to make sure all my straps are top stitched or edge stitched with my sewing machine so that I can, you know, have a real thick strap here. So I'm just going to go off and top stitch these, and then I'm going to line them up where the measurements are in the pattern that she says we have to use. So I'm not sure what those are, but I will find out, because I'm pretty sure we have to top stitch, well, not top stitch, baste them up at the top here so that they stay on, so that we can continue on with the next step. But first, let's get the top stitching done. Okay, so I've top stitched these. I used 2 layers together, and I clipped to the very top where I'm supposed to, the proper measurements, and I clipped the bottom too, because like she says, it helps sew it on straight if you've got it clipped on the bottom. But right now we're just going to baste it on the top. Okay, you can see the basting is done, and I'm going to put these on instead of the pieces that she mentions. Get a shot anyway, just with a couple of rivets so that it holds down that strap. And so my measurements here aren't quite the same as hers, but a couple of rivets should just hold it down. It might work. I'll make sure they're even, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so we've put our little anchors on here for our strap, and basted. What else do I have to do? Oh, if you're putting on magnetic snaps, you're going to have to put it on this lining piece. But I'm not putting on magnetic snaps because I've got the, I'm going to use these pin buckles. So I'm going to, for this, have to finish it off with a couple of holes so I can add this onto here and then have it go through. So I'm not putting magnetic snaps on. I'm going to use those. So now what I have to do is sew the back of my lining on. So maybe I'm going to tuck this in here so it stays out of the way. Put right sides together. And when I go around this curved edges, I have to clip them. I'm going to keep on clipping, and I'm going to sew around, and I'm not going to sew the top. I'm just sewing around here. There you go. I sewed around and I clipped, and now I can turn it inside out. Make sure you don't sew your pocket or anything or any straps into it. It's all clean, and we'll just turn it inside out, and we can't press it. I might be able to press the fabric side, but we can't really press it much. But we're going to flatten it out, and we're going to top stitch it too, and then this will be finished and we just put it aside. Okay, I've top stitched around. And of course, I didn't put the snap on the back. I'm happy with just having those pin buckles. So this piece is finished. Now we put exactly the same thing on this piece. Now, I had it upside down for measuring. This has rounded corners on the bottom too, but they're not the same round as what's on the flap. The flap has a bigger round. So be careful with which pieces you're using. The measurement here is different because we're taking this one from the one on the flap from the bottom to have a little pocket, and this one's from the top to have a big pocket. So I've got my measurements in, and I'm just going to sew around the outside layer right now. Okay, so you see I cut it out, but I didn't cut it out too far. It's very close to the edge. So again, we put the wrong side with the right side, and we'll clip that and sew it on. And then after it's sewed on, we turn it up, right? And then we put the right sides together. And we have the balloons flying up to the center again. So when we're finished sewing it all, it's going to look like this, right? We've got the wrong side of the zipper with the right side of the pocket. And the balloons are going up towards the zipper. So I'm just going to sew those. Then I'm going to press them and top stitch them. So now we have this sewed up, and you can see when it's closed, the balloons will be going up. So now we have to stick it underneath here. And I didn't put zipper stops on, so any minute now, my zipper pull is going to go flying off the edge. I should put some double-sided tape down. So I'm going to line up this carefully, just like I did last time, and I'm going to sew around the inside. And then after I'm done that, flip it over, fold it down, trim off the last bit here, and sew the pocket closed. So there you have it. I sewed my zipper in, so now it's a real pocket. Except the only thing is I still have to close the pocket here, so I'm just going to sew around on the pocket only and sew it around. And then that's good for this piece. Now the method I chose is pretty easy. I just did it by accident. Probably the hardest thing is trying to figure out which way these things are going to lie. So basically what you're sticking in here is the short strap. And it's got to go through there. And then it's got to come out there. And that's how you get the buckle on. And then after the buckle is put on here, it lines up with the top straps. So I've got to measure it yet. But just to show you, we based it on the bottom like that. Let me just find which way this one sits. This way. Okay, and where's my little hole? Right there. And of course I have to measure where it's going to go. And when we're finished, it'll match up with this, because this is your flap, and your flap goes through here. And so of course I need holes punched in here too. But just to show you. So this is the front, and when you open the flap up, undo the buckles, there's your front. So I'm just going to baste these down where I'm supposed to put them. Okay, the next part. This is going to be the slip pocket that we stick on our back. So that'll be pretty cool. I first have to put my snaps on, because this is going to face not that way. But when we get this together, it's going to sit on top of here. So we have to make sure there's a snap here and a snap there. Now I've marked already where the snaps go. And you can always check them, even though the pieces don't go together like this, the marks should line up. Just make sure your pieces line up and roll it back, and yeah, it looks good to me. So I'm going to stick a snap in here and a snap in there. This one has to go through here, and this one has to go through there, so that the two, look at how that sticks together. So these can meet up with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you the next step here. I'm going to use this too, because I want to make sure it stays no matter how much pulling we do on it. And I think I lost a washer somewhere. So I've got to find my washer too. Okay, the snap is on both pieces, and I can see that it matches up really nicely. And I stick it on here. So now let's get this with this together, and right sides together. And all we're doing is sewing up the top, lined up nicely. And that's lined up nicely. Then we can, oh, I missed this totally. Then we can turn it and press it and top stitch it. And then after it's finished, it will just be placed on here and sewn on. So to start with, I'm going to sew this on. Okay, snap on. Sewed the top together and then pushed it over and top stitched it. Then I sewed around and my vinyl started to stretch. So I've got a little 3D effect there, which we will pretend is supposed to be there. Right now we just put it on here and we line it up and we baste it down here to keep it on. And then we'll be finished this one. Okay, we've got this attached now. I just ran my hand through and made sure I didn't leave any major holes. We can put this piece aside now. I am going to do gussets next. And when we're doing the gussets, it's with directional fabric. I'm going to make this face, the balloons go right side up the sides, right? But the ones in the bottom, you can't really have any choice about whether it's right side up or upside down. So we sew the pieces together and we can top stitch them. And the same for the outside, except when I'm doing the outside, I've decided I'm going to cut strips of some SF 101 because like I showed on the pocket, this is a stretchy, you know, and sometimes it instead of feeding properly, it stretches. And so I'm going to put some SF 101 on all the three pieces before I sew them together and then top stitch them. And that will be our 2 gussets done. Okay, I have my gussets and I went ahead in the lesson plan, so hope I don't confuse you. The sides are sewn to the base. This is directional fabric. You're never going to find out which way to make it go. But when it comes to the sides, you can see the balloons go up. And we're supposed to sew the seams and push them up to the sides and top stitch them down. With this one, I want to show you the rough side here, not the shiny side, was easier to sew because by accident I got the shiny side up and my machine kept sticking. But what we do is, again, sew the 2 pieces together. I haven't got the clips out of this one yet. So we sew the 2 pieces together here and here, and we top stitch it, but this time we have this pointing in the other direction. So this is pointed towards the base, and this is pointed towards the sides. And on this side, I wanted to show you, I'm going to clip out just a little bit of this in hopes I can reduce my thickness. So then when I push it towards the base, like this one, hopefully it'll stay and I can run it through my machine and top stitch it down too. And I forgot one layer. There, towards the base. Now that's going to be pretty thick for me to sew through, but I'm hoping my walking foot can save me. And on this end here, just like this one, I zigzagged along the top just so that it would stay together. And I've got, not here, but here, some double-sided tape holding it down so that it doesn't move as it's being sewed. You could always zigzag all the way around the outside just to get it to stay, but I have to be careful because this is really stretchy vinyl. And sometimes when I sew it, it just ends up stretching out of shape. So remember, the ends of your seam allowances go towards the bottom here and towards the top here. So I'm just going to top stitch this and zigzag that so it doesn't flap around. And then I think we put our outside gusset on our pieces. Okay, now we can baste our exterior on. I put my interior gusset aside for a moment. We can base this on here. I was going to mention before I do it though that I've shortened these straps, and the reason why is because remember when I told you in the little pop-up that I placed this zipper overlay, I can't remember how much, but it's a little bit closer to the bottom than it should be. It's supposed to be a bit higher up, and that doesn't really make a difference when you're doing it, except along the way later on there are going to be times when you run into problems. And one of the problems I don't want to run into is having this be too long, because then it'll hit into this, right? It'll be trying to sit up here. So what I am trying to do is estimate, and I think this would work to have this flat up here and this run through there and still give me enough room. So what I did was I shortened these straps down, sewed them on, as much as I made a mistake as lowering this. So everything's going to be lowered an inch or half an inch, whatever I did. So if this is lowered too, right? This is going to be lowered too. So I lowered everything so that it would fit together smoothly still. So for now, I'm going to attach this to this. If we've got center marks we can line up. And I'm going to go all the way around. It's going to be a little thick where that strap is, but we just sew. And I'm going to start sewing from the center bottom here and based up. And then after I get it all done, I can do the other side, center bottom up. And then after I can do the proper seam allowance, stitching around. But for now, I'm going to do this. And I have to clip, obviously, on these corners because I've got a straight thing and I have to stick it on a curve. So I'm just going to keep doing this, attach it, clip, go up to the top. And I'll come back and show you what it looks like when I'm done. And you might notice, too, that I like to draw my seam allowances in so that when I'm sewing it, I know if I'm going off. Because if you've got these two things lined up properly and clipped together, that's where you should sew. So it really helps when you're slipping and sliding around. So this is sewed on. Everything's on the blue line. I hit the blue line. It really helps to have something to guide you. And I kept the edges together, so that means I didn't make anything crooked. And I check around here and it's all sewn here. So now let's line up this with this and do the same thing. And I don't have a center mark. So there's the center marks, and let's go all the way around and do the same thing again. This time we don't have any straps in the way, but we do have extra thickness here. So be patient going around the corners, pay attention to the line that you drew for your seam allowance, and clip your curves. You see how I clipped mine here very vigorously? It helps you get around the curves. So I'm going to clip this and sew this, and then after I'll come back and show you what it looks like and we can check. Okay, so we've got it all sewed up now. So make sure you put your hands in and feel, I mean, you could turn it right side out, but I'm worried about my appliques. I don't want to turn it too much. So make sure you check all the way around, that you haven't caught anything wrong in there, and that there are no holes. I did have a hole where I bounced over one of the thick areas, so I just went back and re-sewed it right there. And make sure that you're on your line all the way around that you drew in, so that everything is nice and even. And I trimmed the extra out of here. It was easy to sew through, but I just don't want this to be too fat when I turn it around. I want it to be a bit flatter, and so the only thing there will be is the two vinyls layers there. So now let's get our flap on. So I've got my top sewn now, taped face down. I've got my back facing up, so I can attach this to the back. Put it inside. Where's my center marks? Line them up. Let's clip it together. And let's just sew that down. Now it's sewed on, and you'll happen to notice I spread these open as I went through, just in case later I have to sew it again and I want to make it not doubly thick. But if we look in the inside now, here's our flap and it's on our back. I'm just going to put it in there and keep it in there until we need it again. Now we can measure off these and trim them down. Some might be long and some might be short. It just depends on how it works out. I don't have anything to cut here. So I'm just going to cut off this so it's nice and straight all the way across. So now we can work on our interior. I hope I'm not confusing you because my interior is going to be black with these are the card slots. I figured if I had too much print, we wouldn't be able to see the card slots when we stick our hand in if I use this print. So I used a solid. So the card slots are going to go on here. And the zipper overlay and the zipper pocket's going to go on here. And this time, I'm going to make sure that I measure how far down I go so that I don't end up with my pocket being the wrong size. And I notice I don't have my rounded corners, so I've got to round my corners off too. Okay, this time I was very, very careful to measure every which way. So I'm going to sew the outside of this, and I'm going to cut out the box only because I want to make sure I keep backing on here. Okay, we've got the same routine as before. I edge stitch the outside. I cut out the box only so that I have black here. You can see it's very close. And I'm going to push that aside for a minute. Get my right side with my balloons facing up. And I'm going to put this right side up and this right side up. And I'm going to sew it. Then flip it. And sew it with these right sides together and balloons facing up. I'll sew it to this. Okay. And after I sew the zipper on, I can top stitch it down. So I sewed this on. You can see balloons are going towards the center. This is the right side, but this is the wrong side of my zipper because it's going to be flipped over. And I put this on top. Now I've been thinking, I want to make sure that all my zipper pulls are on this side. This is the inside back, so I want my pull on this side. We'll see if this works, because I haven't been paying attention. But this is going to go on here like this. I'm going to center it nicely in here, and I've got a little bit of double-sided tape to hold it down. And then I'm going to sew the inside box. And there it is. Now let's flip it over and put our linings together. I have to trim off a little bit off the end. Don't cut anything except this one layer. And then I have to hem this up. Now, we have to decide if we're turning through our pocket lining or if we're turning through our bottom seam of our lining inside. I think, I'm not sure yet. I have to look at how heavy everything is. So I'm just going to sew the sides right now so that if maybe I can turn through the lining of the pocket, I will. If not, it's easy to pull this out and hem it up anyway. If you're not going to use it, it's okay to leave it open. So I'm just going to sew the sides right now, and then we'll be done with this piece of it. And then we'll consider whether we're going to turn through the pocket or turn through the base of the lining. So I'll just sew these sides up for now and don't sew anything else in here but these sides. There, we have our pocket, and it's got a hole in the bottom. Ha ha ha. So just in case we want to turn through the pocket, we can. Otherwise, we'll just pull it out and hem it up, right? Like you pull it out here when the bag's done. And you hem it up that way. I usually turn it under a bit and just sew across. just like that. But we will leave this open just in case we want to turn through this pocket. I'm not sure about mine because my vinyl might be heavy and I might have my appliques rubbed off too much if I turn the bag through this little hole. But we shall see. Now I'm going to do card slots. Okay, I've pressed in all the folds that she says she needs. And we have to be careful to keep this back one out. You could probably hardly see anything there. But I'm supposed to sew, top stitch, edge stitch these 4 top edges only. So I'm going to do that. And then after I've done that, I have to baste the sides down so that these folds stay in place. Okay, I've sewed my top edges here. There's 4 of them. And then after I sewed down the center and I secured the sides, and now I can see my card slots fit. And, you know, if they're too loose, then we're going to make the seam allowance on the edges a bit bigger. And if they're too tight, then you must have cut something wrong. Or you can make your seam allowance smaller here. But now we're going to turn these up like this. And we're going to sew it. And then we're going to turn it back again, you know, inside out. Now I've sewed the sides up and I can turn it out. And I'm going to go press it again. Got my little pokey thing here. Get the corners out. Just fold it under like that. Both sides. She measures out the distance. Because you can finish it off after you press this down and make the opening, top opening closed, or you can wait until you're attaching it to your bag and close the top opening. It's up to you. I should probably check and see what she says in the pattern. So that will be our card slots right there. There, now that our card slots are done, we put them on here. And she's got measurements for where to place them. And we just sew around again here, but you're first going to have to make sure that your pocket lining is out of the way. Because if you just sew through these layers, you're going to end up sewing through your pocket too, and that will make your pocket totally useless. Okay, now I am not going to sew it on because I usually carry a wallet. So I'm going to leave this off, but I've shown you how to use it and I've shown you how to sew it on just all the way around. So you should be pretty experienced at doing that. So I'm going to move on to the next step and just leave this blank. Oh, I guess I could put my label on there. I mean, I could put something on there, right? But still, again, if you're doing that, make sure that your pocket's out of the way. We don't want to sew into that. So I'm going to center this little label here and sew it on. Now this side is our last side and it has a slip pocket on it. And I haven't rounded my bottom corners. So I will do that. Make sure your balloons are facing the right way. And what we're going to do is, this is a slip pocket, so we're going to sew the top edge together. Okay, so we're going to sew these top edges of this together, and we've got our seam allowance. We'll turn it over and we'll top stitch, press it and top stitch. And I still have to round my corners, so I can't forget that. And then after that, we're just going to baste it on here so it can go on here. Okay, we have sewn the top seam here and we top stitched it. And then after I was thinking, my iPad fits in here, but if it's not in here, I might put something else in here. Maybe you don't have an iPad. So maybe we should put a snap here. It doesn't have to be used when the iPad's in, but it could be used when we're using this pocket for something else. So what I did was I measured from here to here, and I flipped it over, found the center, and measured the same. So I'll poke the holes in there, and I'll put on some, put on my magnetic snap, maybe this one on this side, and this one on this side. And I made marks here too, right exactly where it's supposed to go here. So I'll just put these things through the fabric here, and then we'll have a snap too. And here's something to think about too. This is how it's going to go together, right? Let me get this piece over here so you can recognize it like that. I've already got my snap on this piece. If you want to make sure you get this snap in the right spot too, line it up. And you can already feel where the magnetic snap is underneath there. And this is sticking to the magnet actually. So that's where you want to have your holes. Okay, so we'll make little holes there because the magnet grabbed it good. So I'm just going to put holes and finish this off. And then we can base this on top of here. Not that way, this way. So we've got it snapped together now. It's a big pocket. And I didn't mess up my balloons. And then let's attach these things. I've already basted around the sides because this is very stretchy vinyl and I don't want it to move. So now I'm going to baste it around. All right, so I sewed the slip pocket to the front lining because that's where it sits here. And I'm putting everything on this side because that's where the zipper is. And I prefer to have my keys and my bottle right where the zipper is. Because if it's in the front and I'm pulling everything this way, that's where the zipper is going to be. Now, I have the right elastic, but I don't have the proper cord. So I made this one much shorter because it's so springy. So I just made it as just a little bit bigger than the bag itself. So all I have to do is kind of tack these in here with some zigzagging. Okay, now we're on to the zipper top. I've already folded these down, pressed them. Press that up so that I could make the facings for the zipper. I'm going to use these ones. I wonder if I can have them run in the same way at least with each other. Oh, look, they match up. I'll have them like this, but of course they're underneath, right? And these ones are going to be on top. Now the problem with that is this piece is going to be shorter, so I have to trim this down the exact same length. I think it was ½ inch here, ½ inch there, so I've taken an inch off so that these are exactly the same. So I will cut both of these down because I want to use this for the top and this for the inside. So to start with here, I put my these things are so cute. Anyway, I roll the ends in here and just make a pointy zipper stick through, and I drop some glue inside and shove it in, and then I screw it in. So that's got that on there. I put my zipper pull on, and on the other side I've got this sewed down into right angles so that it looks the same on both sides at least. So that's my zipper. I'm going to open it up because it's easier to stick on here. And it's kind of backwards thinking, but that's the bottom. My zipper has to sit on here like that. Except, of course, I have to have it lined up the right way. So if I stick it like this and we fold it back, is that going to be right or wrong? That is going to be right. So I will attach this one to here and this one to here. But of course we have to put it right to the edge there. Now if you want to sandwich it, you can sandwich your other piece in there too and just put it on top and sew them. But I think I should put it like this, don't you? Because then when we turn it over, it's going to be the right way. So I'm just going to trim this off and then I'll sandwich the zipper between the two pieces. So these two will have the right sides together, and the zipper will be facing up so that it's facing out the top of my bag. And just because these things can be a surprise sometimes, I've sewed one side and I zip it up just to check because I want to make sure that the other side's pinned so that it matches nicely, because you don't want these ends to be out of whack here. So let's stick a little clip in there to hold this. And then I know, yeah, that's, you know, I can live with that. That's good. It looks good. Then I'll clip this on and clip the other one on. So just, you know, stop and check sometimes. Okay, so here we have it, and I've sewed it on. And the other thing is I started from this end and went up because there's a big bump there, and I like going this way over the bump. But the problem with that is my vinyl is stretchy, so when I'm sewing this way, it stretches. So sometimes it ends up over. So I have to be really careful to make sure I clip everything down as I'm sewing, and I go really slow so I don't stretch my vinyl. So from what I can see is these pieces line up nicely. Now we're going to sew them so they stay put. I put a lot of clips in just because I want it to learn that this is how your life is going to be from now on. So anyway, I'm going to sew around here, and then I'm going to put a ruler up and make sure that the widths here of this facing are exactly the same on both sides, so it is centered nicely when you put it in your bag. So I'll just check to see, maybe I cut crooked or I sewed a bit wobbly up here, just to make sure that after it's sewed down and it's put, that it is all uniform all the way across. And then after, we can sew it into our bag. So there we have it. All finished, trimmed. I only had to take a little bit off, and I seriously went crooked with this top stitching basting here, but it's going to be hidden underneath in the seam anyway, so I'm saved. This is my back, and my back has the pole on this side, so I want the pole on this side too, because it's the back, and I like to have everything going that way. So I'm going to line up my centers. And that's easy sewing, just right across. There, so we have the inside with the inside. A little bit of lining in each side here. Now on this side, we need the same thing. Now we're just going to line up our centers again. This piece is so much lighter. I'm wondering if I should stick some foam inside here to give it some strength. I keep telling myself to think about it, think about it, think about it, and then I never do it. I might have to just put the two layers together and see what, there, and then it'll be like that. Remember to tuck anything out of the way that's going to cause problems. I can tape it down, because eventually we're going to have big trouble sewing the outside if everything is falling in the outside seam. I think this one will be safe because I tucked it inside our pocket. But that's the inside of our bag, right? So I'm going to sew that on. So now when we open the top zipper of our bag, we'll be able to see inside. Right? So I think we can move on to the next step. Now let's pick a side and baste our gusset on. We line up the bottom centers here. Make sure you've got the right layers under here. You don't want to be putting your pocket in there, so open this up, because this is the pocket that we might turn my bag through. I say might because I'm not sold on that yet with the appliques and everything that I'm using. I don't want to be too rough with anything because of that. So this is open just in case we have to use it later. I'm just going to tuck it in a bit, maybe clip it so it stays. But it is there just in case we have to turn something. And then I'm going to put this gusset on here. clip it all around. We did this once already with the outside. It'll be even easier with the inside probably, but don't forget to clip your curves. And before I sew, I just wanted to let you know that I did stop and put my stitching line on and clip my curves. And I'm going to start from here and sew up, and start from here and sew up, because if there's any excess, I want it to fall here and here, because when we clip these corners down, they don't always land in the exact same spot when we're sewing them. So sometimes you end up with a little bit of fabric creeping up there. So I'm going to start from the middle and go up and around. Okay, so I've sewed this side on. Run around here and check to see if it looks good before you move on to the next side. And then I'm going to do the next side. Make sure your zipper is open. Make sure this zipper is open. And let's sew these together here just the same way. Line up your centers. And I'm going to start from the middle and go up. Okay, I've got my bag all sewed together, and if you might notice here, I left the base open and I left the pocket open. I'm not sure if I'm going to turn it through the base or the pocket. When looking at this though, this pocket is wider than the base that I can leave open, because I don't want to leave the curve open, right? The curve is such a nice shape already sewn now. So I might turn through the pocket. I might turn through the base. I can't decide. But what I have decided is to add on some foam. I put a sheet that's short here so I can hem it up, and short here so it doesn't get in the way, but I attached it to the side seams on both sides. So I'm going to turn this out because I want to see how easy it is to turn it. And I might just leave it out. Okay, I've got my bag turned out nicely, and I think I'm going to keep it this way. So I'm not following the pattern instructions. But it's the same idea. The only difference is that I'm working from a different perspective. I have the bag right side out. Now this is the lining, and it has to go inside, right? But the only problem is if you just stick it inside, you've got to have these raw edges sewn up, right? So what we're going to do is flip this over and sew up our raw edges like that. I'm going to just get a little clip here so I can show you. Now, since we're sewing the raw edges like that, we might as well stick this big bag inside the lining so that we can see the top edge that has to be clipped. And I'm just going to do one little section at a time, because you want to make sure you're doing it perfectly, right? You don't want to run into anything. And this way we can see we're lining up our seams here. Put a clip on there. So if I do just this little bit here, then I can stop and check if it went okay before I pull it around and twist it and turn it to get this other section. So it's easier if you just go a little bit at a time and leave the rest. So I'm just going to sew this one little seam, and that'll hold. Get that out of the way. And then I can move on to the next little section. Okay, the first section went okay, except my machine got upset when we started. So now I'm going to sew the second section. Just along here. I'll straighten that out too. Now that you've got it sewed on, you're going to want to check to see all the way around that it's sewn and not too bad. And I'm going to cut down one of these layers because it's too thick, especially where the flap is, because one side's very soft and the other side's very hard. and we have to turn it, and when we turn it we top stitch the top. So when I top stitch, I only want one layer there. I don't want that heavy layer. So I'm just going to trim everything down and get rid of that heavy layer. Now I am going to pull it through the opening in the bottom because I don't think I can maneuver enough to get it through the opening in the side. But this way I can just gently turn it out. Now keep in mind that her instructions are different, but it's the same technique. It's just I've had the other side, right side out, instead of what she's done. I'm not worried about rumpling up the lining because it's on the inside. I'm really worried about rumpling up the outside though. So there, how does that look? Check around, make sure there's no holes, because now's our chance, if something's wrong, to just pull this back over top of this outside, okay? So just pull on it, make sure it's good. I think before I go too far, I'm just going to sew this bottom seam up because I'm not going to need this pocket open. You remember how our pocket was open? I didn't want to turn through the pocket with this heavy stuff, so I'll turn through the bottom. So I might as well sew this pocket closed now. There, so this pocket is closed at the bottom. Well, I guess I can close this up now, because I'm just going to push it inside the bag. Okay, my lining is hemmed up. We can push these corners out when we shove it in, along with pushing these out too. And right now I just want to put this inside here. All right. We have our little pocket in the front with our key fob. And we have our zipper pocket in the back that's closed. And we have our zipper pocket here. And if you want to, if you can, it depends on your machine, you can top stitch around the mouth of this, but when you do it, you're going to have that zipper up. I might do the front because I know I can, but I'm not sure about the back because I don't know if I can do the back. Might be too many layers. And we have to do it on here, which goes through here, because we don't want to mess with this. So it's up to you. I do it on here so it lands here and stays off the zipper. Even if you wanted to just do the sides to get them to sit down, that would work too. Even just an inch on each side where there's no seam allowances, that'll help hold it together. So there are quite a few options for you. Right now I'm going to get a can of peas and I'm going to put them inside so the thing, you know, flattens out. Otherwise, the next thing we do is our front straps here and our bag straps. I'm wanting to do webbing, but I don't know if I have the right size hardware for webbing, but we shall see. I've decided to just top stitch right here to try and hold this down for my holes, and on the other side. I haven't punched holes in here yet. I've got my pieces cut and I put some heavy-duty stabilizer in there, and I've marked out the holes, and I use this to judge where the hole should be here. So now I just put these on here. Of course I need a D-ring on there first. I'm not sure if this is skinny enough for a D-ring, but I do know that this material is soft enough that it'll just bend around it anyway. Yeah. So the heavy duty stabilizer is what's holding it in. So now I'm going to put this over top of here, and you can use rivets. I've got Chicago screws, you know, whatever you like to hold it down. So I'm going to put that in. I guess I need a D-ring on this one too. And then after I do this, put this D-rings on the side, then I can make a strap and attach it to my D-rings. I'm just going to put this here so it gets used to sitting there. Okay, time to put on some, I've got Chicago screws. So the first side is done. I might slip some glue under here just so this flap doesn't stick up. And now I can do the other side. And then we'll go on to our straps. So I have my strap anchors on. I glued down a little bit on the edges just to try and make these flaps stay down flat on both sides. And next is to make sure I've got a hole here for my pin to go through. I put a little chalk mark here. I'm going to measure both sides to make sure they're the same, because it just might be the tension, you know, of me pulling it through that has made it different. And then I can space them, you know, maybe a couple more after. So I know that's where the mark is going to go. But like I said, I'm going to measure it too to make sure they're exactly the same, because I want that space here to be the same on both of them. So I've done the strap anchors. I'm not putting in a base because I've got foam and this Decaville type thing on the sides, so I think it's stiff enough. And I like soft bags for the most part anyway. And the next thing is going to be the strap. I'm going to use this one because I love this webbing, but it's really quite thick, so I'm not going to try and punch, you know, holes in it. I am going to put this on and do a bit of this vinyl for a strap end, and then sew it down because I can sew through it easily. So that's how that will be attached, but I'll show you when we get around to it. Right now I'm just going to take a minute to punch these holes, and then we'll start working on the strap. Okay, I poked my little holes in here, and I was extra careful that I found an end that fit the pin only. I didn't want to go too much bigger than the pin. So now I have to weave this back through here. And this is how it'll close up. I made one at the mark, centered, and I put some evenly spaced after it just for looks. But I did draw on the other side exactly where the center was and the measurements so that both straps would be exactly the same. I made sure the straps were the same length too. You never know sometimes when you finish a project that you're going to end up with two straps on it and they're both going to be different. Something happened along the way. So before I went on, I checked to see these two straps were both the right length. And that makes that part of it finished. So now I just have to do the strap part of it. And I'm going to make mine with webbing. So this is the length I want to have. And I only have one slider left, and it's the wrong color, but I don't care because I really want this webbing. So I am going to stick a little bit of glue on the end of this so it doesn't fray anymore. And then I'm going to sew down my patch on top of the mess so that it hides it. And that'll take care of this. Right now I'm just going to clip it so I can show you. Let's just clip it on there so we can get an understanding of how this goes together. If I can get it on there. There. So I will eventually sew around this. You can use rivets and all that stuff, but I'm going to sew it on. Next, which way does it go? It has to go through a ring, and half the time I put these swivel hooks on upside down, so I always have to check carefully because I don't want the hook sitting on the inside, right? I want it sitting on the outside, so let's make it like that instead. Okay, that looks a bit better. Then it's going to go up in here, and it's going to go down in here. And I'm going to move it so that you can see both ends. Make it really small. Hopefully you can see that. And then this goes on another slider. Another swivel hook, whatever these things are called. I have taken the strap end from the pattern and I put some reinforcing on it so that it's nice and strong, because my vinyl is flippy floppy. It's kind of a pain to sew with sometimes. Then after we put this in here, we're not too concerned about right side up because this turns. So no matter which way this sits, it'll work. And then I can sew it on there. Let's just clip it for now. Of course, I'm going to put glue on the ends so they don't fray. And I'm going to glue it inside there so it doesn't slip as I'm sewing it. So I'm going to sew, I can only go so far here, so I'll probably start there and sew a little box on. And that will end up being my strap. I hope you can see it. And then I can put that on my bag. So I've got to sew around here, sew around there, and then I'm done. Okay, I don't know if you can see this all on the screen here. I've got my strap, it's adjustable. And my bag. I'm so happy. So how'd that go? How did yours turn out? We really want to see. So make sure you post it on Facebook or Instagram, tag Cork and Copper Designs, because she and I would really love to see what you've come up with all the different opportunities and things that there are with this bag. So thank you for the pattern, Cork and Copper Designs, and thanks for watching.